I've been wandering through the desert, ain't seen a cloud in forever over me. Oh, I believe your rain is coming, yeah. And I've been hanging on to high hope, 'cause you're the one who's making dry bones come to life. You're the light I put my trust in, and every word you said is gonna come true. You will lead me to the promised land, and everything you said is gonna happen, even though I haven't seen it yet. And I will build a boat in the sand where they say it never rains, and I will stand up and pray. I'll do anything it takes with your wind in my sail. Your love never fails or fades. I'll build a boat in a desert place when the floods and the water starts to rise, yeah. I'll ride the storm 'cause I got you by my side with your wind in my sail. Your love never fails or fades. I'll build a boat, so let it rain. You're the map and you're my compass. You help me navigate the currents under me. So take the lead and I surrender. And every word you said is gonna come true. You will lead me to the promised land. Everything you said is gonna happen, even though I haven't seen it yet. And I will build a boat in the sand where they say it never rains, and I will stand up in faith. I'll do anything it takes with your wind in my sail. Your love never fails or fades. I'll build a boat in a desert place when the floods and the water starts to rise, yeah. I'll ride the storms 'cause I got you by my side with your wind in my sail. Your love never fails or fades. I'll build a boat, so let it rain. I'll build a boat, so let it rain. And I will build a boat in the sand where they say it never rains, and I will stand up and faith. I'll do anything it takes with your wind in my sail. Your love never fails or fades. I'll build a boat in a desert place when the floods and the water starts to rise, yeah. I'll ride the storm 'cause I got you by my side with your wind in my sail. Your love never fails or fades. I'll build a boat, so let it rain. I'll build a boat, so let it rain. I'll build a boat, so let it rain.
Today I'm going to just retell a story. And as I retell the story, you need to know that I'm not talking about my family. I'm retelling a story. So if it sounds like I'm talking about my boys, who are both in here, I am not talking about you. It will sound like it, but I'm not. So that is my preface this morning that you guys need to all know. We're going to go into the book of Luke. And you can either follow along on the screen, or if you have it on your phone, you can follow it there, or a Bible, however you want, or you can just close your eyes and let this story that Jesus tells wash over you. Jesus told this story. A man had 2 sons. The younger son told his father, "I want my share of your estate now before you die." So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. A few days later, his younger son packed all of his belongings and moved to a distant land, and there he wasted all of his money in wild living. About this time, his money ran out. A great famine swept over the land, and he began to starve. He persuaded a local farmer to hire him, and the man sent him into his fields to feed the pigs. The young man became so hungry that even the pods he was feeding the pigs looked good to him, but no one gave him anything. When he finally came to his senses, he said to himself, "At home, even the hired servants have food enough to spare, and here I am dying of hunger. I will go home to my father and say, 'Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son. Please take me on as a hired servant.' So he returned home to his father, and while he was still a long way off, the father saw him coming, filled with love and compassion. He ran to his son. He embraced him and kissed him. His son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But his father said to his servant, 'Quick, bring the finest robe in the house and put it on him. Get a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet, and kill the calf that we have been fattening. We must celebrate with a feast, for this son of mine was dead and is now returned to life. He was lost, but now he's found.' So the party began. Meanwhile, the older son was in the fields working, and when he returned home, he heard music and dancing in the house. And he asked one of the servants what was going on. 'Your brother is back,' he was told, 'and your father has killed the fatted calf. We are celebrating because of his safe return.' And the older brother was angry and wouldn't go in. His father came out and begged him, but he replied, 'All these years I've slaved for you and never once refused to do a single thing you told me to do. And in all that time, you never gave me even one young goat for a feast with my friends. Yet when this son of yours comes back after squandering your money on prostitutes, you celebrate by killing the fatted calf.' And his father said to him, 'Look, dear son, you have always stayed by me, and everything I have is yours. We had to celebrate this happy day, for your brother was dead and has come back to life. He was lost, but now he is found.' I have 2 boys that are just awesome. Any of you have 2 kids that are just polar opposites, though? Anyone? I mean, they're just polar. My 2 boys could not be more different from each other. My youngest, he's one of those creative types where just energetic, always looking for an adventure. He's outgoing. He's fun to be around. People just love to be around the guy. I don't know if you know someone like that, but I mean, he's cool, he's trendy, and people just, they laugh when they're with him. And he's always got a joke. He's always interesting, always some good story. And they can't wait to see what it is that he's going to do next. Do you know anyone like that? No, none of you guys do. All right, I feel sorry for all of you. There you go. But this kid of mine, he's got more talent in his one little pinky finger than I do in my entire body. And he doesn't always live up to his potential. That's one of my struggles. I don't know if you know anyone like that. You just want to yell at them. If you could just apply yourself, you could accomplish so many amazing things. I mean, because he's such an amazing kid. I mean, he really is. So much potential. But like every personality type, there is a flip side. And many of you who have that outgoing personality type, you know what the opposite and kind of what the underbelly of that charming, fun-loving, spontaneous personality is, right? I mean, you know the underbelly of that. My youngest, I mean, he's undisciplined. He's unorganized. He's pretty messy. Sometimes he can be kind of a show-off. He's always trying to get people's attention, and he's pretty self-centered. And if I was to be honest, I mean, you could see them when he was just a little kid, those tendencies. I mean, he just hasn't grown out of them. He was always wanting people to acknowledge him and for people to see how great he was. And the thing is, he is great. That's it goes both ways. It's like he needed the approval of other people, and he's always doing plays. He was always making up these fun skits, and he would do them for the family and the friends when we'd have these gatherings. He was always going to be the lead character, and he would make his older brother be something like the cow, or a non-speaking part, because that's really he didn't really like any speaking parts anyhow. But my youngest, he was so colorful. He's so loud. He was always the center of attention. And he's always been a little bit unpredictable, too. He's been impulsive. He's one of those live-in-the-moment, free-spirited kind of people. And he doesn't really think about long-term consequences. And it's been my experience that type of personality, those kind of people, they really have a hard time battling the desires that come at them. To them, it seems like those desires, they just seem to be so strong that they easily get seduced by instant gratification. And sometimes he becomes addicted to things, and it just kills me to watch people battle that. My boy, he has this tendency to think that, these feelings, as they're just flooding him, he starts to let these impulses and his appetites lead him around day by day. And sometimes it's those appetites that make decisions and not maybe what is a good decision. He kind of reminds me of this guy in another Bible story, and I know we've talked about it recently, Isaac, who we talked about, who also had two kids. He had Esau, and Esau was this huge guy. He was this rugged, strong football player kind of guy, good looking. He was a big-time hunter. He'd been shaving since he was in the 4th grade. And then he had the younger brother, Jacob. And Jacob, that's his polar opposite. And Jacob, he kind of was he was smart. Boy, he was smart. He was pretty sneaking with that brain of his, though. He was cunning. He was ambitious. He was driven. And eventually, that would one day get wrestled out of him. But he would turn out to be a really great guy. But this one time, before it had kind of worked through some of that, he stooped so low as he planned and strategized to steal his older brother's inheritance. And their dad was dying, and the dad just, for whatever reason, dad just loved the oldest more, Esau. And I don't know if it's because he was so strong and athletic, or he's just more proud, or if maybe dad saw himself more in the oldest. I don't know why. But Jacob was more like his mom, where he spent more time in the kitchen. He was actually a really great chef. The guy was just gifted, and he could make some of the most amazing food. You would smell it a mile before you got home. And this one day, Esau, he was coming back from hunting, and he smelled the food even before he got in the front door that his younger brother had been making and working on. And it just smelled so good, and he started just salivating, just going, "Oh, brother, I don't know what you're making, but I want some of that." And the younger brother, he's like, whoa, it's going to cost you a little bit, older brother. And so Esau asks, all right, what do you want? What's it going to cost? Well, how about your inheritance, said Jacob. And Esau says, okay, give me a bowl of that soup. And so Esau was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. But in that moment, for whatever reason, it sounded like a really good idea. And no matter what it cost in that moment, and the thing is, it ended up, and we've talked about this, it cost him everything. And that's just the way that some people are. That's the way that my youngest is. And that's the way that he used to be. Because my youngest, he is learning. But he's so impulsive that he doesn't always think things through. And he's always making these questionable decisions, and even some bad ones. but you can't help but love the kid. I mean, because you just love him. You don't even know why you love him. You just do. And he's got this smile, he's got this charisma, this charm that just lights up from his body. It's not even his face. It's just, there's this authenticity about him that is just so attractive. Even when he's bad, he's authentically bad. And you just love the kid. Then I've got this other son, and my oldest son, he's awesome too. I love that kid also, and I love him with my whole heart. But they're polar opposites. And my oldest, he's more of a thinker. He would make this amazing engineer. And he's analytical. He understands processes and steps. And I don't know, anyone else more like that, more of a thinker than a feeler? Anyone? Back, we got one person. All right. I know, that's what I'm saying. That's the one person. He's this introvert. And he can get so focused on a project that the whole day will just pass. And he never opened his mouth. He didn't talk to anyone. He didn't even know his cell phone was ringing. Didn't care about the texts. None of that mattered. He was facing some problem, and he had these things, and he was working the gears in his head, and he was so focused. It was so interesting, and at the same time, it was so exciting and invigorating, and as he's just solving something and overcoming, and the kid never gave me a moment of trouble growing up. He never got into trouble growing up, and he also was not a risk taker. He wasn't the kid to go off the high dive, and he didn't go on roller coasters. That just wasn't his thing. And while his other brother may have been out surfing and tearing up the waves with his friends, he'd be the guy on the beach with some math book reading on the beach, and he just, sunblock SPF 500. I mean, that's just how he was wired. That's just the way it is. And he's just so reliable. He's so predictable. He is so trustworthy. In fact, he did go to school to become an engineer. That's what he loves. It's what he wanted to get a degree in. But then he changed majors to get an agricultural degree just so that he could come home and help me run the family business. And he is a hard worker, and he's loyal to his friends, and he's always trying to do the right thing. He's just a great kid. And in fact, sometimes he's a little too good. I don't know if you know what I mean by that. He's just too good. He can be so full of his goodness and his righteousness that everyone else is wrong. They don't know enough. They're not seeing life how he sees it. And he can be more than just a little opinionated. And he's told me more than once how I'm supposed to be running the family business, and he thinks I'm way too soft. He thinks I extend way too much grace to our employees. He thinks that, if he was in charge, the business would really thrive and grow so much better, and he doesn't understand the kind of leadership that puts people above profit. And he's always obsessed with his graphs and his charts and these performance reviews and analyzing the hard data. And he would rather cut an employee than sit down and talk with him to help them become a better employee. And my son has turned into this really rigid rule keeper. He has a hard time extending a second chance to people that make mistakes and screw up. Like my youngest, he has so much potential. And if I could just get him to loosen up a little bit, if I could just get him to embrace the fact that I am his dad and I'm not his boss, and if he would just try to watch my life, how I run things, and let me walk with him, I really think he would enjoy life more. I think he would enjoy people more. I don't think he knows how much I really love him. And I've tried. I've tried so many ways to let him know. I just long for him to slow down long enough to realize that. And I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you how much it broke my heart when my youngest son said he was going to leave and he wanted to go. I mean, he didn't have any plans. He had no itinerary. He's just leaving. He wanted to go see the world. He needed to go experience life, go find himself. And he was tired of being fenced in. And I tried to tell him, you know what, the best life that life has to offer is actually here. I've seen the world. This is it. This is it. Home, family, friends, putting roots down. But when he gets something in his head, it doesn't matter if it makes sense. If it's in his head, he's got this feeling, these emotions. He's just going to throw himself to the wind and see where it takes him, see what happens. He's like, I'm going to do it. He said he just needed some cash, and I knew what that meant. Has anyone ever seen you as just an ATM machine? Yeah. That's hard when you're a parent. I thought maybe, he'd need a few $100, maybe even 1,000 or 2, but that's not what he asked for. He asked for his share of the inheritance. It was like he was saying to me, "You're dead to me, Dad. I'm through listening to you. I don't want to be here anymore. I'm out of here." That was tough to hear. And to be honest, it was all I could do to just kind of choke back the tears and not let him see how much that hurt. But I gave him the money and I let him go. It's one of the hardest days of my life. To see him get in his car and to drive away knowing how badly he was going to mess his life up. And as a dad, it just about killed me. I think that as a dad, I think you need to set some loving boundaries to protect your kids from things that are going to hurt them. That's what we have to do. But sometimes as a parent, when your kids are old enough to leave home, the most loving thing that you can do is to just let them go. And our kids have free choice, and love really demands the freedom for them to be able to choose. And that is what my son, he chose to do, was to leave. And I just knew, and I know, oh, he's going to get hurt. And I know he's going to experience some things that he shouldn't. And I knew he was probably going to walk into some really dark places. And I knew that he would use his charm and charisma to hook up with people that they would only leave him and abuse him, and he would just be empty. I know that. And I know that he's going to get manipulated and used and chewed up and spit out. And I all that I know. I know that. I know. You don't need to tell me that. And I knew that the money would not last no matter how much I gave him. And I knew it wasn't gonna give him what he wanted. He's looking for something in here, and that money's never gonna do that, because money can't do that. And I tried to talk him out of it. He was raised in an environment that taught him right from wrong, and I had to let him go, because honestly, it's just his choice, and I've got to let him own this one. It is hard to watch your kids make terrible choices. It just is. And some of you have made bad choices. You know that. Your parents let you. Maybe some of you are making bad choices right now. I just want to encourage you, if I was able, to come out of the dark and start to choose to walk in the light. And if my youngest boy was here today, I know that he would tell you the same thing, because there's nothing, absolutely nothing there for you. And I know it seems exciting and lots of people are doing it, but it's going to leave you wounded and empty and feeling guilty. And shame-filled. I mean, guilt is one level, but shame, I mean, that's a whole nother level to get to in your life. Because now you start to feel like a worthless nobody. And it's going to leave you wounded and empty and feeling guilty and that's so far from what is true. And I know that some people have heard about my youngest son, and they say things like, well, now see, here's what you got to do. You've got to let them hit rock bottom and come to the end of the rope, because then they can turn around and look up. And I just lovingly, as best as I can, say, no, they don't. No, that is not a true thing. You do have to be humbled, and you do need to be broken, but you don't have to hit rock bottom. You can choose to see the light now before you crash and burn, before you hurt a whole lot of people in the process. The last thing I want to see for anyone is to hit rock bottom, but rather to realize that the direction you're walking now, and to then turn and come home before the damage is too great. And if you will, just like my youngest, you will find the love of the Father just waiting for you. He smelled so bad. He smelled so bad. But he smelled so good. Do you know what I mean? I mean, he hadn't had a shower in a week. He hadn't shaved in probably a month. His breath could knock you over. But I didn't care. I mean, I had to kiss my kid. In fact, I saw him coming down the road even before he saw me, because every single day, just part of my normal routine of every day is I would just walk out to the front of the property, and I would go stand out at the gate, and I would look down the road, and I would just pray for him. It's kind of me just talking to God. It was kind of part of me still grieving and working through this process. But this one day, I saw him, and when I saw him, I just took off after him. I mean, I may not look like it, but I still got it. I can run. I used to do the 400 in high school. I haven't lost it. I don't have the same time, but man, I tell you, I was sprinting down that road, and when I saw how broken he was, you can tell when you see it on their face. You know. He wasn't faking it, and I just stood there crying like a baby, and so did he, and we were both just blubbering all over each other. And I can't tell you how great it was to have my kid home, and how great it was for him to want to be home. Man, I love that kid, and I have missed him so much. And I know he was thinking he would probably get kicked out of the family. Not even close. He's my kid. He's my kid. Everything's forgiven. And man, we partied that night. I mean, we pulled out all the stops. We had so much fun. I am never going to forget that night. That one of the best nights of my life. But I got to tell you, it broke my heart because my other son, the older one, the good one, he wouldn't even come. He wouldn't even come to... He was so filled with... I don't know what the right word is. Disdain is probably the best. That might be the right word. He said that he couldn't believe that this son of yours, and he didn't even call him his brother, didn't even name him. He said, that son of yours even had the nerve to show up and show his face around here again. And he was mad at me, he was upset that I would even express joy at his return, and I can't believe it. He was jealous. He wasn't even happy to see his little brother. There was disgust in his eyes. It's a little bit scary because it was kind of like hate. Like he wished his brother was dead. And he sees his little brother as this big embarrassment to the whole family, and he won't even talk to him. Not a handshake, not a hug, nothing. And that just broke my heart too. And it still does every day. His heart has gotten to a place where it's like I owed him. He's never captured the fact that I unconditionally love him also. And he has this sense of entitlement that he's kind of living with. And he forgot about everything that he's ever received, everything I've ever done for him. But he's lost this heart of gratitude. He even said it. Well, you never threw me a party. And I'm thinking to myself, Okay, don't laugh. But you got to be kidding me. How many parties have we thrown for you as you guys were growing up? I mean, we went to Chuck E. Cheese. I took you to Dave & Buster's. I mean, Great Wolf Lodge, Sweet Spot. How many times did I take you to those places? Oh, I mean, we had graduation parties and birthdays. I mean, we're always doing these things. We had so many great family vacations, senior trips. I mean, not to mention all of the sacrifices that I made for every one of you boys that were all behind the scenes, and none of that, none of that. But in this moment, he had forgotten all of it because he was jealous because I was being so kind and gracious to his brother, and he couldn't believe that I would throw a party for such a loser. And it just kills me because when your heart gets to that point, to the point where you can't hear the music, or worse, where you're just covering your ears, when you can't even stand to watch the celebration of grace take place, that's when your heart is in a dangerous place, and that's where my oldest son is right now. And I love him too. And I just wish he could see it. I wish he could embrace the love. I wish he could embrace the grace. I wish he could understand the heartbeat of heaven. I wish that he could see that we had to celebrate. We had to. I mean, that's what you do when lost things are found. I wish he could see that nothing could ever separate him from my love. No distance. Angels, nor demons, nor fears of today or worries about tomorrow, not even the powers of death could separate him from my love. No powers in the sky and nothing below, nothing in all of creation would ever be able to separate him from my love, from the love of a father. And I want my two boys to grasp how wide and high and long and deep my love is for them. I don't know how to help them with that. I don't know which of my boys maybe you guys could relate to better. I don't know where you find yourself in the story, but I'm here to say to you, wherever you are, you need to come home. And you need to live and breathe and move in the unfailing love of the Father. And like many of you, I've probably read this story 100 times. And I can't pretend to completely know all of the inner workings of the heart of God, but Jesus clearly intended for us to get a glimpse into God's heart through the Father in this story. And how you read the story does depend on your vantage point. In fact, I mean, you could see the Bible as this impossible rule book full of an angry God, or you could see it as this incredible love story from the first page to the end. And Jesus told the story to show us the unfailing love of his Father and how God wants all of us to come home and to live with him forever. One of the best friends of Jesus was a man named John, and he wrote these words about Jesus. He said, "But to all who believed in him and accepted him, he gave the right to become children of God." And that is God's desire, and that's God's heart for every single one of us, to be his child. And he also wrote this in another book he wrote called 1 John, chapter 3:1. It says, "See how very much our Father loves us, for he calls us his children. And that is what we are. And that is what we are." And we can have that relationship with God. Maybe up to this point in your life, you've known of God as a kind of religious thing. You know, I go to church, it's this, God's out there, it's this idea, it's a concept, it's a great idea. But that's not it. It's not about showing up for church. It's not about going through the motions. It's about a daily, real relationship with your Maker, with your Creator, with your Father, with your Daddy. And if you embrace what Jesus did on the cross for us, we are his kids. But like my two boys in the story, it is your choice. And if you choose to invite Jesus to come into your life, not only will God forgive your sins and your mistakes and your failures, he's going to give you a new life. And he's going to move into your heart so that you can walk each day in a new direction. And all you have to do is start walking towards that gate and to come home. And you'll find the Father waiting there, just looking down that road, waiting for you. So how do you do that? I mean, how would you even start that process? It simply begins just by talking to God. And you can do it really even in your heart. You could even do it right now where you're just sitting and you would say something to the effect of, you know what, I believe that through you, Jesus, you made a way for me to come home. Today I need you, and I want you to forgive me. For me trying to lead my own life the way I wanted to, and I give you my life. Please clean me out and please heal me. And that's just a guideline. I mean, you pray your own prayer. You talk to God how you want to talk, but if you've never done that, I do want to just say you are invited to do that right now or any day you want, because the Father is just waiting for you to come home. Or maybe you've been following Jesus for a number of years, and the truth is you're more like one of my two boys. And maybe today's the day for you to turn around and come back home and to really enjoy an intimacy with God as a father. And if that's something you're doing for the first time, I would love to just talk with you about it, or just to know so I can journey with you better. And I'd love to pray with you. If you're willing, you could just share that with me later. Or maybe you just need more time today to just talk to God, or to listen to God, or to feel the arms of God wrap around you. And for those of us who've been following Jesus, one of the things we're going to do today is we're going to take communion. And as we head back into worship, where you could just spend some time with God. And we're going to do several things. One is you could sing and just kind of let the words wash over you, or you make them your words. That's kind of the beauty of what worship music is designed to do, is as I sing the words, it's not just that we have to, well, I've got to sing this song. It's not my favorite song. It doesn't have the right music. It's the whole point is so much more. It's about there's truth in these words, and how do I make this truth come from my own heart? And that's only something you can do, where I take the words and I say, I know someone else wrote them, but these words are now my words. And God, I give them to you too, because that's who you are. This is who you are, God. And this is how I feel about you. Or you just get honest with God, and you're like, God, I don't feel that about you, and I want more of that, and I don't get it. And you just start getting honest and real with God. Or at some point, if you're like, God, I'm ready to take communion. And it's going to be in the back today, and you just do it at your own time, where there's the bread and the juice, and when your heart is ready, you just come up to the table and you would say something to God like, thank you for making a way for me, God. Thanks for loving me, because I feel like I have drifted, and I feel like I'm coming back home today. Thank you for running towards me. So I'm going to close this in prayer, and then when you're ready, feel free to take communion. God, thank you so much for making a way that we can come home to be with you forever. And God, I thank you that you give us a second chance. So many of us, we grew up in a culture or in families where we had this kind of misconception about you. Some of us, we grew up thinking you were this kind of more of a mean drill sergeant waiting for us to step out of line. I am so grateful that Jesus told us this amazing story so that we could see you as our Father, the Father of unfailing love, who invites us to come home. So God, I pray that is what our hearts will do today.
Let the King of my heart be the mountain run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, He is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, He is my song. You are good, good. Oh, 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 let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, He is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo in my days. Oh, He is my song. You are good, good. Oh, 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 you're never gonna let me down. 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 You're never gonna let me down, 'cause you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, God, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, God, you are good, good. Oh, God, you are good, good. Oh. Good morning. Has it been a long night? Maybe been a long year, maybe been a hard life. Maybe you're not alright. You got a little red in your eyes. Will you come to the right place? People like you, people like me, this is where we all find grace. Come on now. Bet you wanna sing hallelujah. Bet you're saying amen. Can't help but celebrate being born again. Somebody who loves you is waiting at the door. It's home sweet home here in the house of the Lord. Take a load off. You're about to find your rest. It's a crazy world out there. I've got some hope right here out of the wilderness. You needing water for your soul. Well, you've been in the right place. Matter if you're rich or poor, whoever you are, this is where we all find grace. Come on now. Bet you wanna sing hallelujah. Bet you're saying amen. Can't help but celebrate being born again. Somebody who loves you is waiting at the door. It's home sweet home here in the house of the Lord. Bring your heartache, bring your burden. You can lay him down at the door. There is no fear, you belong here. Step into the house of the Lord. Bring your heartache, bring your burden. You can lay him down at the door. Ain't to the house